right. How do we start?
That's good. I think that should be it.
Okay. Welcome to Real Boiz.
Yay. New podcast. We talk about movies.
Yeah, sometimes.
This is Danny.
And this is Solomon.
I'm Solomon.
Yeah. And we are two
Real Boiz.
award-winning filmmakers.
Right.
We have won awards such as the Mom's Congratulations Award, specifically from the Williams Mom Foundation.
Thank you, Williams
Thank
Mom.
you, Williams Mom, for being
that.
our first sponsor.
We'll put her phone number in the
on the green screen.
On the green screen.
We're gonna just Photoshop it in right on the table.
Yeah. What are we talking about today, Danny?
We're talking about the movie Lady Bird,
Ooh.
which is now an Academy Award nominee for several things, but most importantly, Best Picture.
Yes. Yeah.
And I would agree.
You would agree?
Yeah, Best Picture.
I agree too.
So we're going to start. We're going to do the first half of the show. No spoilers. Second half, if you haven't watched Lady Bird, go watch it and then come back, because I'm sure you will remember to do that.
Please go watch it.
Please go watch it.
It's great.
It's good. Movie of the year.
Let's first start off by saying that both Danny and I went to Catholic high schools.
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I'm just Catholic without the high school part.
Gotcha. Well, I went to a Catholic high school.
Yeah.
We both did theater in high school, though. So
Yes.
that is, yeah. And those are two huge themes in this movie.
Speaking of that, actually, the first thing I wrote down whenever I was watching this movie is I liked it, Catholicism, because I feel like there's a trend in movies. I don't know how your experience was with Catholic high schools, but that Catholicism is always portrayed as the most austere, super sterile, hating environment.
Right.
And it's it's just like any other high school.
Right, exactly, yeah. And I think a lot of, people who didn't go to Catholic high school are, on the outside looking in, people are like, oh, it's kind of weird that you're forced to say a prayer, and you're kind of... every day before class, at least in my high school, we would say, some sort of prayer, and then we're forced to go to mass twice a month or something like that.
Yeah.
And I told that to a couple of my friends, and they're like, that's really creepy. That's some 1984 shit. That's fucking scary. I'm like, not really. Not really. It just becomes, part of a routine. It's like saying, the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right, yeah, exactly. And this thing for me was how they actually portrayed the teachers in this movie without going too much in depth. Even though they are priests and nuns, they're just people, which is awesome. Because I feel like whenever you get into that territory, sometimes it just becomes stereotypes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that was actually a fear that I had, because looking at the trailers and everything for this film, I was like, is this going to be an anti-church message? I guess I'm not down for that, but it turned out to be, not in a really...
If the church is watching, letting you know right now, we're not anti-church.
We're not anti-church.
We're not pro-church.
No.
I've been to church's chicken.
I'm hungry.
I like also that I feel like this is one of the most realistic portrayals of teenagers.
Yes.
Talking about characters. Lady Bird is a phenomenal character. Tons of depth. But it's so easy not easy. It's easy in context to do a good main character.
Right.
It's so much harder to make the characters that are the antagonists and the characters that are the deuter-antagonists and the side characters, to make them just as human as the main character. Mm-hmm. So the thing I was thinking about was the character who is the one... the second boyfriend,
right,
is the cool kid, but he's also reading Howard Zinn, and he's a history nerd.
Right.
Yeah, I like that the characters who could easily be stereotypes, somehow they add something that's just a little quirky that really fleshes them out. Because I don't think I ever went to high school with a kid who was exactly a stereotype.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was super realistic in that aspect.
Yeah, and that I don't think there's anybody who is a villain either.
But it seems like every adult character would be, considered some sort of an antagonist, except with maybe the exception of her father.
Right.
but they're not presented as evil. Definitely not.
Yeah.
They're not presented as, trying to stop Lady Bird. It's just, being from, like, looking from her perspective, 17, 18, about to go to college, teenage girl. It's sort of the world is against her and her ideals and what, she stands for. She's very, very eccentric and very, a very moving person,
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's almost like that classic, like, the dreamer versus the realist. Like, none of the adults, we'll get into it later, but most of the adults are pretty fair, but they also just have expectations that are more in line with reality, whereas Lady Bird is a dreamer and a bit of an optimist.
Right.
And so it's not so much a clash of good versus evil, but just a clash of almost banal ideology of just like, this is just how I see the world, and it's just a perspective clash.
Right, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot. If you're going for realism, I think that's really a good way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. On the topic of realism, I was thinking how much I loved the setting of 2002.
Yes. Oh my God. It works because, like, I think it's far enough away that people who are younger are going to watch it and be like, oh, that's strange, but not so far away that it has become like a pastiche, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because, like, if you think, like, the 70s, like, everybody has that stereotypical idea of the 70s.
Right.
I don't think 2002 has that yet.
No, it definitely does not.
Yeah.
Aside from maybe, like, the flip phones, the flip cell phones, that was, like, the only thing. But I don't know, it just feels very 2002. The house, the computer.
Oh, yeah.
TV, everything that was just sort of, background setting was just, it felt early 2000s. And they could have gone, like, a crappy, like, like you said, like an 80s or 70s, 90s route and just, chock full of, the greatest hits.
On a technical level, how did you feel about how the movie looked?
I thought it looked great. Are you talking just like the shots in general?
Well, first thing is, if I remember correctly, this was done on film.
Okay.
Which I noticed immediately.
Okay.
That I watched it and I was like, oh yeah, it has a very film look.
Okay.
And yeah, I think but I think that also adds to 2002.
That's what I was about to say.
Like, yeah.
I feel that sort of, not really vintage, but the like it brings it a campier feel to it.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, it reminds me of even like the 2002 2000 to 2005 indie scene, like things like Sideways, like where it reminds me of the indie movies that were coming out then. Mm-hmm. And like it goes for that feel story wise, but also within the setting mimics that look,
right?
Which I think works phenomenally.
Right.
But yeah, I thought that it almost had. I liked all the colors too. I think also the film helped with color.
Yeah, it was colorful, but in a specific palette, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like almost like a blandish palette, like a 2002 palette.
Yeah. And like when the colors did get like bright, they were almost always pastels.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I think that the thing that specifically the way it looks is they do a lot of shots that remind me of home movies. Mm-hmm. If you there's a part where they're in the car and there's like B-roll of the horizon going by.
Right.
And I'm like that is what makes me. It really like drives home the feel of the film, that the film can feel almost like a home movie at some points, but not take you out of it because it makes it so much more personal.
Yeah.
Oh, this is actually a technical note that drove me a little up the wall at first. Did you notice how weird the pacing of the editing was? Or was that just like a me thing?
That's a you thing.
Okay.
Why? What was weird about it?
There's like when they were doing there's a scene where they are in like high school theater and they're doing all the quick cuts between the activities. Mm-hmm. And like they are doing quick cuts, but they're not quite quick enough. They're somewhere between a longer take or a longer shot and a shorter shot, that it almost feels like they could hang on things longer. And I don't know if there was a specific reason for that, like if they needed for time purposes to like, cut everything down, or if they didn't want to, or if she was trying to make it feel amateurish. But like early in the movie, especially, it's almost like when something is offbeat in music, like where it's like, okay, I would cut it now, and then they hold 2 more seconds and then they cut it, and I'm like, why would you do that?
Okay.
But
no, I did not catch that.
That's a very me like being nitpicky thing. You're a sound guy.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice how sparse the sound was?
I noticed kind of the opposite, actually.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. No, I noticed during, or at least it had a couple of pretty good montages.
Right.
And I noticed that the sound in that was they replayed some of the same like background soundtrack stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But it worked to like a good effect. It was interesting. It was really. It felt like that was like, oh, okay, that's like Lady Bird's theme or something like that.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't. Was it sparse in sound to you?
I think that especially toward the beginning, there's and well, not when I say sparse, I don't mean like bad, but I mean like it was actually something I liked, that they didn't rely a ton on, as you've seen, like as I was talking about, like other movies, especially of this kind of feel, like Sideways and Garden State. It's like they don't use a ton of licensed tracks.
Right.
They don't need 20 people talking at once. There's a lot of kind of, I guess, like what is it, like pregnant silence, that's like one person will be talking and they don't feel the need to add a ton of accoutrements to it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I can definitely see that now.
Yeah. I feel like this film, when we're talking about the sound, I feel like this film, though, is almost an exercise in how do you make a good film with as little accoutrements as possible. Like the sound is it's good sound, but they don't use a lot of licensed tracks.
Right.
They don't use a ton of there's not a lot of action sequences. It's mostly dialogue, and the cinematography is phenomenal, but it's very still.
Simple.
Yeah. And I think that's like how I think that's what the film was really going after, is how do you make a good film without needing all these accessories.
Right.
Also, last thing, did you notice in the credits that Greta Gerwig doesn't have a credit?
Really?
It just goes straight to the UPM. Just the first name.
Huh. Is there a reason for that?
I have no idea.
Know?
No, I was just curious.
Interesting.
Because she's like nominated for Best Director.
Oh.
And I was like, that's strange that they would just
skip that over.
Yep.
I don't know.
That's why I watched it. Because the first time I watched it, I thought it was I missed it. And I rewatched it. And no, it's just not there.
All right. Wow.
So, cool. So we're going to start getting into spoiler territory now.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen the movie, go watch it.
Go see the movie.
And then come back. Rewatch the whole thing so we can get more ad revenue. Shouts out to YouTube.
Right. Merch, link in bio.
Go to linkinbio.com.
Link in bio. Put William's mom's number up here.
Yeah. Call William's mom's number.
Mom.
She will ship you the merch from her house.
There we go.
Just tell people to give us a sponsorship on YouTube.
Give us some sponsorships on YouTube and other things that we are on as a platform. We will do good with these things that you give us.
What do we want, Daniel?
We want money and sponsorships now. That's all. Maybe a little bit of, psychedelics. Just kidding. Sponsor us. I didn't say that.
Can we talk about how good the opening shot was?
Yes, I actually wrote that down. It was just very simple opening, no music, no titles, beautiful.
Amazing. It's her and her mom just sort of snuggled up in bed together. I guess it currently describes their relationship, at the beginning of the movie. and it will also seem to describe it at the end, towards the end, when she's, like reading the letters from her. Yeah. I just thought that was really interesting. And, the shot was beautiful.
The mom has a line that's, I believe it's nice to make things sometimes because she's making the bed. And I feel like that ends up being a huge theme for the mom. It comes up again when she's talking about the clothing, that she didn't fold her clothes. And when she gets mad at Lady Bird near the end, she's washing the dishes. And that and the idea of keeping presentable means a lot more to her than just it being presentable, but there's something behind it that it means it's a status.
Right. And Lady Bird brings this up in sort of her own way, because she sort of taps into it too.
Yeah.
With their whole thing of do you like me? And the mom replying, I love you. And say, well, no, do you like me? Does the mom think that her own daughter is presentable and performable in a modern society? Because it's true that, she definitely cares and loves for her, but it just seems like she doesn't think too much of her or too highly of her.
And talking about the opening, that's immediately they show you that.
Right.
When they go into the car and they're listening to the Grapes of Wrath, and they finish the Grapes of Wrath and they're having a real bonding moment, and then immediately they disagree on how that bonding moment should end.
Right.
And it ruins the moment for both of them because they just can't agree on it. And I love that immediately it isn't unrealistic, but it immediately shows you the tension between the two, because within the first 4 minutes of the film, Lady Bird is so mad at her mom that she jumps out of a moving car over something so insignificant.
Pretty great. Yeah. The mom kind of tried to force a bonding moment onto it, and Lady Bird gets pissed off at this bonding moment. The exact opposite happens later when they're searching for a dress and they're arguing, constantly with each other, and then they both pick out one dress that they both love, and this argument turns into a another bonding moment. Look at this beautiful dress. This is great, So it really just shows how back and forth their relationship is.
Right, yeah.
What did you personally think of the mother, though?
I think that if the movie had a moral, it would be how the actions of a narcissist destroy the possibility or destroy the capability for a happy family for both them and their children. I think the mom is a textbook emotional manipulator who I feel bad for because she's a human being.
Right.
But and she says in the beginning, my mom was a violent alcoholic, but it's that the curse of your father, but for this it's women, it's the curse of your mother. And she was clearly neglected, but does that excuse that she is neglecting her daughter? I think that there's a line actually toward the end of the movie where it's while she is not talking to Lady Bird. Lady Bird says, "I'm sorry for being ungrateful. I'm sorry for wanting more." And when your child, because of you, is afraid to want better for themselves, then you've clearly fucked up.
Yeah, definitely. It did seem as though this movie was equal parts Lady Bird's struggle and the mother's struggle as well.
Yes.
And like you said, yeah, she is definitely emotionally manipulative and a narcissist. I don't necessarily think that, she has any malintent. She's not a bad person.
Oh, no. I don't think that she's doing it on purpose.
Right. This was obviously something that stemmed from her relationship with her mother,
Right. But it's just secular. Cyclical is the word I'm thinking. That this happened to her mother, she's doing it to Lady Bird, and then where does that leave Lady Bird? And that's why the end of the movie was kind of almost sad for me. Right. Because at the end, Lady Bird calls her mother and says, hey, I guess I never really, she almost goes crawling back to her mom because her mom wrote her a nice note, which I understand is, it is sincere, but it's it almost just feels like that's the cycle starting again.
Yeah. Definitely. And, you know, it's the question of what position does that put Lady Bird in with her possible future children. How did you feel about Lady Bird finally, you know, taking up the name Christine towards the end of the film? 'Cause I felt like it was a bit of a character abandonment, somewhat. I mean, you can tell that she's growing up, and you know that's definitely inevitable. But I felt like it was sort of a not much so a cop out as much as it was, you know, this whole entire movie we built on the premise of like Lady Bird, you know. That's who she is, you know. She put her name in parentheses when auditioning for the in quotes, auditioning for the play and everything, and people would call on her, respond. She only responded to Lady Bird, and I thought that was super fucking cool, you know.
I think that I mean I understand what you're saying, and I think that actually it was like an integral part of the character, but I think that behind it was like, because she always talks about she wants to live through something, and I think that it's like, when like she starts to feel like Lady Bird is how she needs to define herself, like that makes her interesting. But I think that by the end of the movie, she realizes that she doesn't need a weird name to be interesting. She just is.
Right.
Like I think that that's her accepting that like there is something more than surface level. You don't need a cool name to be cool. You just need to have those actions. And I think that comes with later on in the film when they go back to when she meets up with her friend and goes back to prom. It's like I feel like up until that point she was constantly trying to prove how cool she was, and then at that point she's like accepting like, oh, I guess I can just be myself, and I can be cool while still being myself. So you're talking about how she did theater, and we both did theater. Was that not the most accurate portrayal of amateur theater that you've ever seen?
It was super accurate. Extremely accurate, especially just the uniforms that they were wearing actually kind of matched my school uniforms and everything, and like, you know, participating in theater after school, having them like untucked or just, you know, throwing like a sweatshirt off or something like that. It was just it was super almost like nostalgic in a way.
Yeah,
even though
was for me,
the room, you know, that they performed in was it felt like an old classroom of mine.
Yeah.
The warm-up exercises that they did.
Yeah, it was in the dance room, right? They had a dance room, Yeah. It smells like feet in there all the time.
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting.
But what I love is how accurate I felt like they did a good job portraying what it is like to be in theater. Like the priest who is the teacher, they go see Merrily We Roll Along, right? Yeah. And immediately they leave and teacher's like, they didn't get it. And I'm like, that's I've definitely had teachers who were just like, they were like, oh, that was good, and they're like, no, you don't get it.
You don't understand.
You don't get my art. And also accurate theater problems that you just find out that your boyfriend is gay.
Relatable theater problem.
That was so fucking relatable.
That was very relatable.
Never mind, that'd be too specific. Did you ever
I never find out my boyfriend was gay. No, I still don't know he's gay.
And then what I love is halfway through the movie, the teacher is now a coach.
I love that change up.
Did that ever happen to you?
No.
That's a public school like bit. Like every time a teacher leaves, they don't want to hire a new teacher, they'll get a coach to teach it.
Right. I mean, I've had that, you know, in substitute like classes, and like, oh, he can't come to history, so we're gonna throw in a coach.
No, like forever.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. So I've had there were 3 teachers that left while I was in high school. Every single one of them was replaced by a coach. But I love that the coach. So again, as I was talking about, like the Catholic, like the not oppressive Catholic environment, was like that coach was clearly had no idea what he was doing, and But he came in and he was like guns blazing. He's like, "We're gonna do this."
He was so enthused.
He was like, "You're gonna go here. We're gonna kill it." And then like at the end when they
pull the curtain, run down left stage, just gun it.
No chit chat. And
no chit chat.
When they got done, he was like, "Yeah!" He was like going nuts.
He was so hyped.
I was like, "This is so sincere."
It was It was really
it.
great. Yeah.
Oh man. I thought that was like such a good portrayal of what it was like to be in a high school theater.
Definitely.
After she does the theater thing, and then she's realizes that Danny. Also, I want to say that I love how naive that relationship was.
The first one?
Yeah, her and Danny, where like clearly he is gay, and he reveals that later, but it isn't like, oh, he's clearly gay.
Right.
This whole movie, it's like he's just awkward, which is like every other character. So it's not. It doesn't reinforce any like, oh, this is clearly the gay guy.
Right.
Which is, especially when you're in musical theater, it's just so easy to paint somebody into that.
Where everybody's gay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like that the next boyfriend is,
Right.
we're talking about like how not everybody's a stereotype. When she starts to hang out with the cool kids, the next boyfriend is like a conspiracy theorist, and he's like reading People's History by Howard Zinn, and he's, talking about he doesn't participate in the economy.
Yeah.
And like, I love that the bad boy is a fucking nerd.
Yeah. He was just very much so, the outsider, not like the cool guy, but
Right. Well, it's like I feel like it's so easy for like the outsider to be the cool guy in all these movies, but then like I love that they like kind of flipped it over, and it's like if you met this dude in real life, you'd be like, he is a weirdo.
Yeah, this guy's fucking strange.
But it made it so much more real because
Right.
I know like cool dudes who are like also they're putting fluoride in the water.
Right. Yeah.
Like, and then I think that worked with the mean girl or whatever. I cannot remember her name right now. Jenna?
Maybe.
There's a part where they're talking about, she's like, I don't know why you'd ever want to leave Sacramento. And then she's like, yeah, I just want to settle down and have kids. And I'm like, that was so cool.
Yeah.
That they're like, oh yeah, this is a mean girl, but clearly that she's like also just has other things and is like a homebody and like wants to have kids and isn't just like a bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so nice.
Yeah. I love that. I love that there were no, like hardcore high school stare. You didn't see anybody get bullied,
Yeah, it wasn't like jock time.
Right, yeah. And I also love that, like, the fact that Lady Bird herself wasn't like a loser. Like, Lady Bird was weird. She was definitely strange.
Yeah.
But you could tell that she, she's social enough that she can fit in sort of any group, and she couldn't sort of weasel her way into, different groups. She always runs for class president. She always loses.
Yeah.
That's one thing. But, she was loved by, her peers in the theater program. And she also managed to, talk to the, quote, mean girl, and as well as, like, the cool guy, and, hang out with them. She definitely wasn't, like, the loser stereotype,
Right. And I think I felt like I got that because I was never, like, an unliked kid.
Right.
But I was always... But I think that when she found her group, like where all the theater kids went to that diner and were throwing shit at each other. First of all, don't throw things in a restaurant.
I've definitely done that as a theater kid.
I know. But I love that. That's like that. Yeah, she's clearly social because once she gets into that group of people, she can just like relate to them and she's having fun. And it's not like that she's some like antisocial like cloister.
Right. She definitely, knows how to adapt and can sort of adapt, well with anybody except for, maybe her best friend that she kind of abandoned,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know that. Well, actually, moving on to that, I think that they had such a well-written relationship. Because I think that there is a point when you're in high school where you feel like you need to rise above your friends. And I think it is a little weird that they were doing it so late because she was a senior. But
right.
I think there is a point in high school where you're just like, nah, I can be cooler than my friends. And then you just realize you're an asshole.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I was definitely an asshole.
I think the way that the cool kids, sort of handled themselves and handled Lady Bird saying, I want to hang out with my friends was also really cool and realistic.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, yeah, sure, we'll drop you off.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. It's
like, oh, you're going to go hang out with her? Oh, let's not talk to her. And it was just like, yeah, we'll drop you off.
Yeah. I also think that it's funny that sometimes, like, there are certain times where, like, the characters just had the kids had like nuggets of wisdom that they don't realize they're saying at the time. And like when she just finishes having sex with Kyle.
Right.
And he's just like, you're going to have so much unspecial sex in your life. I was like, that is the fucking realest thing you've ever said.
Yeah. The sex scene with Kyle, Lady Bird loses her virginity, I think was, at least for me, like the most accurate portrayal of losing your virginity.
Can't say. I can't agree with it.
It was just awkward, quick, weird teenage sex that like really shouldn't have happened in that moment, and it was really unspecial.
I was a fucking stud.
Oh.
I had an 18-person orgy my first time.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
How were you
I was
alive?
all 18 people.
Oh.
No, I agree though. I said, and also that scene looks very raw. Like they do not look glamorous when they're having. That's like my biggest issue.
It wasn't sexy at all.
Right. That's my biggest issue with like how the movies do anything. Like not just sex scenes, but like anything is like they're just unreasonably glamorous. Like no teenager having sex is that coordinated.
God no.
Like
God no. Yeah, no, I felt that was a very real and pretty funny moment.
Oh yeah.
She's like, "Are you done?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm good." It's like, "Oh, okay."
Kind of bouncing back and forth. I think this movie has such good awkward dialogue because immediately she goes, "We deflowered each other. We stole each other's flowers," and I was like, "That makes me uncomfortable." That's so awkward.
Yeah.
And then the other one where she's talking to Kyle and she was like, "Don't snitch or I'll kill your fucking family." I was like, that is so real, just like trying to be cool and edgy, and then you're just an idiot. And then his response was just, "My dad has cancer, so God's doing it for us." I was like, that's so fucked, but it's so funny.
They do that, like, that is the main, like, you know, comedy pull that they do a lot in this film, and it just doesn't get old, you know? When Lady Bird hands Danny, like, the hair roller, she's like, "Oh, looks like sperm." It's like, yeah. Just kind of this just awkward silence of just like, that was a really weird thing to say.
"You can touch my boobs." "Well, I would, but I respect you too much."
Yeah,
is just such a good line.
It is.
Off of that sex scene, what I love is there's a part afterward where she's talking to him or Lady Bird's talking to Kyle, and he uses the Iraq War to kind of make her not mad at him. And I love that feeling of like, they really capture the feeling of being a teenager and wanting your problems to be important without being told by other people that they're not.
Right.
Like that's a big central theme, I think, with the mom and Lady Bird, especially when the mom's like, you know, my mother was a violent alcoholic. It's like, your problems aren't important. My problems are important.
Right.
Or like when she's like, your dad lost his job. Do you even think about that? It's like, yeah. I love that they really capture that feeling well of like wanting your problems to be talked about, but everybody else thinks they're just not important.
Not important, yeah. It's a huge theme in this movie, actually.
Yeah. I was just gonna say again with the ending. I think that the ending shows that it's like the mom's pride that destroys that relationship.
Right.
Yeah. That's all. That's all I want to say to the ending. Because like she drove away and she just could have stayed, and then she realized it was a mistake, but she would never admit it was a mistake.
I do like that there was no like, you know, she didn't come back and run into Lady Bird's arms and like hug like, "Oh, I missed." No, she fucking missed her chance. She missed out, you know. And the ending was really, again, like this entire movie, realistic. Yeah. You know?
And I love that. When Lady Bird calls them, she gets the voicemail.
Right.
Because if she'd just gotten to talk to her mom, I would have felt like that was such a that would have been such a cop out.
Yeah, definitely. That kind of would have, you know, ruined the theme of sort of, you know.
To solve the relationship that easily would have pissed me off.
Right.
And I think that's that part at the end where she's explaining why she loves home. I don't know what your life is like, ever.
Yeah.
But have you ever felt like, because I feel that about my hometown. I used to hate it. Like, I used to think it was the most boring place in the world. I come from a very small town in Alabama. But going back there is a sense of, like, I really didn't appreciate how much worse off I could have been. I go back now and I'm like, this is just cozy. I don't think I ever understood the concept of coziness before I moved out.
I can't relate, but I can see when she's talking about, Sacramento and how, oh God, it's so boring. Nobody goes anywhere here,
Yeah.
And she just needs to get out, that, yearning to, get out. And she goes to New York out of all places.
Yeah.
Like, holy
She's like,
shit.
this is where culture is.
Right.
Yeah. And that's like, I went from Alabama to New Orleans. This is where culture is. And then it's like, yeah, there's potholes. When we move to, I promise you're going to feel it when we move.
Oh, definitely.
Like, you're going to be like, there's no red beans.
Oh,
Ever.
God.
There's no jambalaya.
There's no red beans
crawfish?
anywhere. Yeah, it's going to be a culture shock or deculture shock.
Bam. LA, you got no culture.
Fuck you,
Fuck
LA.
you, LA. Okay, cool. Well, that was fun.
That was great.
We got to do this more often.
Yeah.
Lady Bird, vote for it for the Oscars.
Oh, this is what I wanted to do in the podcast. Out of 10.
No shit. I'm to grade it?
Yeah.
Oh. Are you grading it as well?
Yeah.
Can I hear your grade first?
My verdict is like a strong 9 out of 10.
Okay. How decimalistic am I allowed to get?
As much as you want. Just not like 8.64312.
I was gonna do. I almost did a fraction. I'm gonna do an 8.75.
That sounds fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I want to do an 8.5, but then I'm like, but it's just better.
Yeah.
Because it's very similar to other films, but then I'm like, but everything another film does, almost everything it does better.
Mm-hmm.
So
Gotcha. I have a super soft spot for coming of age movies. It just hit me.
I love coming of age movies. I think this is the one that is most realistic.
Right.
Because I also recognize that there's a lot of like dumb shit in coming of age movies that's just not real at all.
Yeah.
But I think this one's really authentic.
They really,
So
the nail in the coffin on this one. Yeah.
put the nail in the coffin.
Put the nail in the coffin.
Coming of age and then you die.
Then you die. Coming of death.
Yeah. You come and then you die. We'll be back again, probably talk about Oscars to do that.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.
Real Boys.
Real Boys. There's going to be a title. Bam! It's going to be
William's mom's
number is going to be right here. Call it.
Call it.